Well, you've heard it 1,000 times, haven't you? Renewable energy is the cheapest form of energy. And if you believe that, I've got a wind turbine to sell you. The UK Times is reporting that the British government has spent £1 billion this year turning wind turbines off. Why? Well, because the wind needed to power the wind turbines was too windy, and the amount of electricity being generated was threatening to overwhelm the grid. But if you're worried about the government's money going up in a puff of irony, don't worry. The government's money is absolutely safe. The cost will be passed on to consumers via their power bills. Joining me now is the Australian's Environment Editor, Graham Lloyd. Graham, you could not make this stuff up.
No, that's right, James. You couldn't make it up, but you could see it coming. I mean, this has been a slow burn in the UK for many years, and we're probably 5 years behind what's been happening over there. In the rush to get these developments, the government agreed to subsidy programs that included paying the wind turbines not to operate when they're not needed. And if you look at the local situation in Australia, you hear a lot about the threat of wind droughts when the wind stops blowing and there's no power, and the answer to that apparently is to spread wind turbines far and wide on the basis that the wind will always be blowing somewhere. The other side of the coin is what happens when it blows everywhere all at the same time. Under the capacity investment scheme and other things, we're guaranteeing the profitability of things that are built. So sure as night follows day, we will be in the same position as the UK in the not too distant future.
So just help me understand what happened in the UK. I understand they built a lot of their wind turbines in Scotland, where it's incredibly windy. But of course, the transmission lines that are required to convert and distribute that power from the wind turbines to the country is not sufficient to take the amount of electricity that's being generated. And so for that reason, they've had to turn them off on windy days. And even when they are operating, they can't have them operate at full capacity because, again, it would crash the system. Have I got that right?
That's right, and it's a situation that we're having the debate here about having to build transmission lines everywhere so these renewable projects can connect and the system is strong enough. And the situation in Scotland is there were very, very generous payments for landholders to host these things on their land. So, of course, all the landed gentry with the big estates, they all filled the place up with wind turbines, which you see Donald Trump and others complaining about incessantly. It spoilt the view. But that was a self-interest on the part of landholders. And now they're really everybody's seeking the money for things that can't get into the system, but the government's still paying.
And of course, as I said, that cost being transferred to people via their electricity bills. So electricity bills are going up in order for you to not use renewable energy. It's an absolute joke. Speaking of which, we shouldn't laugh at the Brits because we've got our own renewable circus going on right here at home. Car giant Honda is warning that the government's 2035 emissions target announced recently, which to achieve will require half of all new cars sold over the next decade to be EVs. Well, apparently the government's plan is going to end up pushing the price of petrol and hybrid cars up. And I guess the irony here is that the price of hybrid cars will rise. They're the very cars that most Australians who want to reduce vehicle emissions would drive, can afford to drive, because, of course, they also offer the ability to go longer distances where you don't have charging facilities. So can you explain to me why this looks set to happen? Why is the government's plan going to cause the price not just of petrol vehicles but hybrid vehicles, which I would have thought they're encouraging, to actually rise?
Well, Honda has decided that Australian buyers are not taking to EVs, so they're more likely to take up hybrid vehicles that you can put petrol in as well. But the government doesn't agree. The government has said, no, everybody has to have an electric vehicle. And to meet the standards, half of all new cars have to be electric. And to try and encourage it, the government has introduced a scheme where car makers, when they sell vehicles, have to have an average emissions over their fleet. If they exceed those emissions on average, they have to pay a penalty. And that rewards the companies that are EV onlys, if you like, because they don't have to balance their petrol cars against the others. Honda is really arguing its book. It's saying, well, we're doing EVs, we're halfway there, we shouldn't suffer the same penalty. But I think the bigger issue is what's going to happen to the price of petrol and diesel cars when these averaging schemes come in. And if you look at other places in the world, Norway, for instance, where Matt Keane keeps using as an example of a big take-up for EVs, the cost of non-electric cars there are prohibitively expensive. And that's really the way that they encourage people to go electric.
And of course, Honda point out that if people just stay with the cars they've got because they can't afford to upgrade, then that's bad for emissions too, because the older the vehicle, the worse it is with emissions. So Chris Bowen just keeps being hit on the head with the law of unintended consequences, doesn't he?
He does, and I think the analysis on that is interesting. If you keep a car for a long time, you're avoiding having to build a new one, which is incredibly emissions intensive. So I think keeping an old car might release more out of the tailpipe, but on a net basis is probably a good thing.
Very good point. All right, I want to ask you about the coalition, who have now indicated they will probably re-adopt nuclear power as part of their energy policy. Here's Shadow Energy Minister Dan Tehan, who's just returned from a fact-finding mission in the US.
That there is a nuclear renaissance taking place in the US, and that is basically also happening around the globe. You will have seen while I was away, there was that nuclear agreement that was signed between the US and the UK, obviously our key AUKUS partners. If we're to meaningfully make any impact when it comes to global emissions reduction, then nuclear has to be part of the equation going forward, and we've got to be able to grow this proven technology.
Graham, I feel like most of us listened to that and went, So I guess my question to you is, did the coalition really need Dan Tehan to fly to America and spend months working out that nuclear power is helpful?
Well, I think, look, overseas, the real money is pouring into nuclear. It's probably good that Dan Tehan or anybody goes and sees the serious way that this technology is developing. It's highly political here. It's something for the future. It's ridiculous that we're not even allowed to think about it. And I think Dan Tehan has just given us a reminder that in the US, in the UK and other places, the advances really to power a future of artificial intelligence and other things, that's where the action is.
Graham, Lloyd, I always very much enjoy talking to you. It's always very informative, and I appreciate you joining me tonight. Thanks so much.